All right, let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the No Fear Job Search webinar series. My name is Linda, and I'm the marketing coordinator at Jobscan. If you're not familiar with Jobscan, we're a Seattle-based company dedicated to making the best online tools for job seekers. And we put this No Fear webinar series together in response to all the stress and uncertainty in the world, and especially the job market right now. Our goal with this is simply to get as many job seekers as we can in front of the people and the tools that can help them right now. Today's webinar is the 14th of 16 in the No Fear Job Search webinar series. Today we have Candace Crowley speaking on how to quickly craft a cover letter that makes a difference. We do only have 2 sessions left, both covering the topic of LinkedIn. So if you want to check those out, you can do so at jobscan.co/no-fear. But with all of that, I am excited to turn it over to today's presenter, Candace Crowley. Welcome, Candace. We're excited to have you, and feel free to take it away.
Great, thank you. I'm excited to be here. All right, so as part of the No Fear Job Search, which I love that title, this is cover letters that sell, and that's the topic for today. And just a little bit about me. I am a certified professional coach, and I've been trained with an ICF accreditation course, several courses. I'm both an executive coach as well as a career consultant and a facilitator and trainer. And I have literally worked with thousands of clients across most industries and most positions. I'm based in the Seattle area, and I know this market really well, but I've been doing this work for almost 20 years. I also have been a candidate. I've been a hiring manager, and then with being a career consultant, I think it really gives me a rounded perspective. And prior to this current career, I was a leader in business and VP positions. So I have a broad experience to bring. We're going to talk about cover letters, but I really like to start with this slide that really says, if you're going to be in the market today as a candidate, it's so important that you are market savvy in order to be market ready. And what that means is it's really important that you market yourself like a product. Think of yourself and your skills and your expertise as a product. What value do you bring? And that's really the focus you want to have. The other thing that I'm finding really important is there's sometimes candidates say, well, I could do a lot of different things, and so I'm just going to throw myself out there, see what sticks. That doesn't work in the market today. Companies are hiring based on very specifics. And so you have skills and talents and competencies that are relevant for specific positions. So those are the positions you should be targeting. And companies hire based on a compelling narrative of your resume, meaning your resume today needs to tell a story of the business impact, the results, and the accomplishments that you bring. What you did is meaningless without you ascribing business value to what you did. And so you really need to be thinking in terms of accomplishments. And then make sure that your marketing materials are ready and aligned to the current market criteria. So that's resume, LinkedIn, any kind of social media needs to really line up with what the market wants. So I'd just like to start with that. Then when we move on to talking about cover letters, you've likely heard the real estate adage that success centers on 3 aspects: location, location, location. Well, successful cover letters are based on specifics, 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 and really a very targeted approach. A cover letter should never be generic. This is where you really want to tailor it to the specifics of the job posting. Otherwise, it's just going to be a fairly pointless document. So you want to research the current market criteria, you want to research the company and the job specifics. And we're going to cover these different specifics of a cover letter. By the way, I'm going to go through the specifics and then I'm going to show you a couple real examples of cover letters. So I may answer your questions when I show you those examples, but if something is really pertinent that isn't making sense, please reach out in the chat and I'll stop and answer those questions. So the first specific of cover letters is that it should be sent or named, addressed to a specific recipient. So it's really important that you attempt to find the name of the hiring manager. Now, that may not be possible, but you should make an effort to use your network to find the internal recruiter or the name of the hiring manager. Why? Because a lot of applicant tracking systems will not get you to that person. And you're going to go through very many filters if you just apply cold online. So if you can use your network to find the name of the person that's hiring, that's ideal. If you can't find the specific name, then use Dear Hiring Manager or Dear Hiring Team in your salutation. Please never address your cover letter to whom it may concern. That just sounds lazy, and it shows that you really don't care enough to find out who the letter does concern. So it's worth taking a little bit of time to find out who you should address the letter to. The next specific is specific company knowledge, meaning do your research ahead of time on the company to whom you're applying. I recently had a candidate that was quite junior that told me about an experience he had when he went to an interview. He actually got it first interview, went to the interview, and he knew nothing about the company, believe it or not, and he knew nothing about what the company did, other than this was a job he was interested in. And so one of the very first things the interviewer asked this person is, well, why are you interested in our company? What is it about our company that has you want to work here? And he was very put off, and he said, well, I'm here to learn about your company, and you're here, you're going to learn about me. Isn't that what this is about? Well, I'll tell you, he didn't get past that first interview. So you do need to know why you're interested in the company, and you need to let the company know what is it about them that you're interested in the cover letter. So you can go to a company's website, you can see their values, their mission statement, their products, their innovation. You can even just do a Google search on news about the company. So find something, use your network to ask about specific companies and make sure that you are sharing why you're interested in that company in particular. It's sort of like, it's a subliminal way to say, hey, I like this about you, and we might have something in common. So take some time to really do research on that. The next two specifics, 3 and 4, are about the specific position and the specific skills. So what I mean by this is you need to make sure you list the job title and the job number or the job rec at the top of your cover letter. That makes it really easy for whoever's reading this to know exactly the job that you're interested in. So you want to make it easy for them. And every cover letter should be specific and unique to a position. Again, I do not recommend generic cover letters. They really don't serve a purpose at all. So make sure you're talking about the specific position. And specific skills. It's important that you go through what would the hiring manager or recruiter likely want to know about you, not what do you want to tell them. So what are the skills, the experiences that qualify you for this job, this particular job? and make sure that's in the cover letter. So often for candidates, we tend to write our job search materials, cover letter, resume, LinkedIn, from our own personal perspective, but that's not effective today. We really need to be thinking like a business. What would the business need to know about you to know they want to talk to you? Why are you the right candidate? Then cover letter specifics 5 and 6. Be sure to tailor to the job posting. So a compelling sales technique of flattering the person who wrote the posting by echoing their words, their language, and some of the phrases and their intent. So this demonstrates that you know how well you do fit the description. And then describe how you will meet the company's specific needs, solve their problems, and otherwise bring value. And you'll see in the example how we address this a specificity of that. And then cover letter specific number 7 is request action and follow up. So specific requests. So don't be vague about your desire for an interview. Assume that that will be the next step and make sure you ask for that. And then take initiative to follow up. This is where it can be really helpful to have that the name of the contact, either the recruiter or the hiring manager, so that you have somebody to follow up with. And again, that's where networking and using your network can really be great. And don't be shy about continuing to reach out until you have an answer on next steps. You know, companies have gotten a little bit lax with following up and following through with candidates. You know, give them a couple weeks, and if you don't hear anything, follow up. So keep going with that. And what's really important here is to know your audience. I mentioned this before, but companies are very specific about what they want in a candidate. And you really must match close to 100% of what's listed in that job posting. So make sure you've done your homework. Make sure you're being reasonable about, here's what I've done and here's how it matches. Do your research of job titles and evaluate how closely your skills and experience and competencies match what they're looking for. Those job postings have a lot of good information that can help you position yourself for an interview and really be strategic about that. And again, make sure you use the company's specific language. You know, they may say cross-functional collaboration, where you may say, oh, it's teamwork. We'll use their language. That'll make sure that they know you understand what you're going after. So this next slide is about how to review job postings thoroughly, and well, how to review them. And the first point is review them thoroughly. Now I found what I like to do is actually print it off. It's just easier for me, but you can certainly read it online. But you need to go through that posting several times and highlight what are the key things they're looking for. What are the key things that qualities or responsibilities or skills that match me? Because you want to create your cover letter based on this research. You want to go through each section of that job posting really carefully. You know, what are the responsibilities? What are the requirements? What are the skills? A lot of people overlook that responsibility section, and that really describes the scope of that role. And a lot of times there's some real key information in there that can help you craft your cover letter and stand out from other candidates. Then the third point is you go through all of that and you aggregate down the 5 to 7 key points from the posting. Now, I have been doing this work for a long time, and I'll tell you, I've gone through a lot of job postings, and no matter how verbose they are or how concise they are, if you look carefully, you can aggregate the key elements down to 5 to 7 and address those specifically in your cover letter. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to the cover letter parts. And I know right now this slide, the cover letter itself is small. I'm going to enlarge that after I go through the cover letter parts with you. So the opening paragraph, why are you excited about this company? That ties back to having done your research. What is it about the company that has you want to work there? And then brief, relevant background. Relevant to this specific job. And then you take those bullets, the 5 to 7 key responsibilities from the posting, you bold those as bullets, and then you use a 1 to 2 sentence statement to describe exactly how you meet each one of those key responsibilities. And then a closing paragraph, you thank them for their time, you ask them for a meeting, and you express how excited you are to make an immediate contribution. So let me see if I can enlarge this. And this example, I'm going to show you 2 examples, and these are real letters. Is that showing good, Linda?
Yes, it looks good.
Okay, so first of all, let me talk about the heading on your cover letter. It should be the same as the heading on your resume, because what that does is it creates a sort of brand around your job search materials. So this is a real letter. I've taken out all the personal information, but you can see it's really clean and simple. So copy that, whatever the heading is, on your resume on all your job search materials. Always put the date. Now this is assuming this letter is not an email. This is going into an applicant tracking system. This is the assumption here. Always put the month, day, and the year, and always put the company name and the company, and the job title. And then again, this person addressed it, dear hiring manager. And then the opening paragraph, here's my background. As a multifaceted financial professional, developed through several years in investment banking and enhanced by an MBA, I'm excited to apply for the manager of financial planning and analysis position at company. It's exciting to watch the growth trajectory driven by your unique automated tax solutions. I look forward to the potential of contributing to the next phase of the company's growth. My background comprises a decade in high-impact roles that have required exactness and speed. Through my corporate experience and several years working in the technology and financial services industry, I'm confident I'll be able to hit the ground running on day 1. And then we come down here to, this is the section that I talked about earlier, where you aggregate those key things from the job posting. So this person found 5 key things: financial planning and forecasting, reporting, analytics, leadership, and communication. And you can see then, I won't read through the whole content, but you can see they've described how they meet those key areas of responsibility. It's really very straightforward. And then the bottom paragraph, really simple and right to the point. Thank you for your time and consideration. Now, we've kind of lost some social courtesy, but I always think it's important to say that right up front in that final paragraph. Thank you for your time and consideration. I look forward to meeting with you soon to discuss how my qualifications can make an immediate contribution to company's growth in the role of manager of financial planning and analysis. And then you have sincerely or best regards or whatever, and your name. You do not need to put your email or your phone at the bottom, because why? It's at the top. So, and you can see if you look at this closely, or in full screen, how crisp and easy that is to read. The margins are nice, you've got good white space, but it's not dense. So let me show you this other example. There we go. So this follows the exact same format. It's just for a different role. And again, copy and pasting the heading information, and then the date. I just happened to put today's date. I was editing this document. The name of the company, the job posting, or the job title, and in this case, the job number. And then, dear hiring manager, I'm excited to have found the posting on LinkedIn for the position of Manager of User Services. Having been a leader in education my entire career, I look forward to the possibility of leading the technology user experience for the ABC School District. As you can see from my attached resume, my skills, my background, and my accomplishments strongly match your criteria. My education career began in an elementary classroom and then moved to sales and support of education technology. Most recently, I was the digital product support manager at Education Company, where I drove technology innovation and change within the education publishing industry. And then this person had 6 bullets, same format. But again, you can see how specific this is, to showing both of these to the different roles. And then again, the bottom paragraph, the same. So basically, you can have somewhat of a general opening paragraph and closing paragraph, although you do need to make sure you, in both, in any case, address the specifics, name of the role, name of the company. And then this middle section with the bullets is going to always be unique to each different role.
Candace, we have a question from David here, and he's asking, what's the best way to aggregate, keywords or info for long job descriptions, for example, those in the government or public sector field?
That's a great question. Well, you can use Jobscan tools, Jobscan, the company, their tools to help you aggregate those keywords. But I found just going through it with a highlighter and even colored highlighters and saying, okay, this relates to people skills, this relates to leadership, this relates to collaboration, this relates to process improvements. And you have to just take some time. It's not something you can read through once and I don't think and really get. You have to take some time to aggregate that down. And so whether you do it through a scanning tool like Jobscan, or whether you color code it or highlight it somehow if you're on screen, you really do need to go through it and find those key things. Did that answer the question, David?
Yes, I think so. Thank you.
So now, what else can I address? What are your questions, comments? I'm happy to take questions.
Yeah, let's see. We've got a lot of questions in the chat here. A lot of people are asking if they're applying for multiple jobs at the same company, should they use multiple cover letters, tailored to each position, or?
You know, I would say in general, yes, because even if your resume remains generally the same for those different positions, you know, what are the specifics of those roles that are different or unique that you can address in the cover letter? And as long as an applicant tracking system has a space to upload a cover letter, I think you should always use it, because again, it can address the very specifics of those roles uniquely.
Great. And in regards to addressing the cover letter, George asks, how can you research who to address the cover letter to if the application makes no mention of the hiring manager?
Great question. This is where networking is just so key to the whole job search process today. And I know for a lot of people, you know, networking sounds about akin to having a tooth pulled, but it really is essential. And you probably know more people than you think you know. And so you start with who you know. Hey, you reach out to your network, you know, your 10, 20, 30 people and say, hey, I found this job I'm really excited about. I think I'm a good candidate. It's at ABC company. Who the job title is, you know, a DevOps manager. Who do you know do any of you know anybody at that company? You know, so you can just reach out. You can use LinkedIn, of course. You can use other social media. You really want to try to find that name. Now, you may not always. There was a time when you could call a company up and say, hey, I'm looking for the name of the person that would be hiring for this. And, you know, there was a time when you could get that. Probably not today. So your network is really essential. And then worst case, if you don't find the name of somebody, then it's dear hiring manager or dear hiring team. Mm-hmm. But networking is key.
Yes, absolutely. And then George also asks, how do you research a company when the recruiter never mentions the name of the company, or they aren't able to tell you, for example, if you're applying through a talent agency?
That's a really good question. That's a little harder, because if a company is using an external recruiter, they're doing that deliberately because they don't want you to know the name of the company. But you might be able to ascertain by the way the job posting is worded, the name of the company, or at least the industry. Mm-hmm. And then it's just a matter of, you know, networking. Again, hey, I found this job through a recruiter. I don't know the name of the company. Anybody have any ideas? You know, who might this be?
Mm-hmm. Great. And then Christy asks about following up. So she says, I've been told that follow-ups are not particularly welcome, especially when companies get hundreds of applications for one position. Any tips for following up in ways that don't put off the hiring manager or recruiter?
Well, again, you know, this is where networking is so key. And it's so important if you can find somebody at a company that you're applying to. And it may not even be the hiring manager or the recruiter, but, you know, maybe your cousin knows somebody at the company you're applying at. Would your cousin be able to, you know, reach out to that person on your behalf? Or would your cousin be willing to introduce you to that person via email, where you could say, hey, I'm applying for this job. Could you find out who the hiring manager is? Mm-hmm. That happens. And, you know, a lot of large companies have bonuses for employees that end up recruiting and bringing a candidate on board. So, you know, it's worth it for people within organizations to support others getting hired.
Yes, definitely take advantage of those referral bonuses. Um, let's see. A lot of people, including Jim, are asking about career transitions. So if companies are looking for those exact responsibilities or keywords, how can someone make a career transition into a new field?
Wow, that's a tough question to answer simply because it's not easy to make a transition, and that's where networking is really critical. Because you've got, if you've been in an industry for a while and you're wanting to get into a different industry, you have to really think carefully, how are your skills transferable? How do you sell that differently in your marketing materials than how you've been selling it? And you really need help getting connected to people that can help you get into a new industry. Applying cold to a new industry in today's market is tough. So you really have to be strategic and be realistic. I know a lot of people mid-career get to the place where, okay, I've done this for the last 20 years. I want to do something very different now. I mean, you can make that happen, but you really have to be strategic and realistic about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if that answered it exactly, but those are my tips.
Mm-hmm. What about employment gaps? Should you ever address those in a cover letter, or how do you go about that?
That's a great question. It depends on the length of your gap. One of the things we don't do as a trend these days on the resume is put months, your time in the role. We generally tend to just put year to year. And so that can hide gaps that are less than a year old. If your gap is longer, I don't think I'd address it in the cover letter per se, because you really don't want in the cover letter to call out anything that could be a negative. But you could address it on your resume by saying sabbatical. Why were you don't have to say what you did, but you had a break. Or you could just leave it and trust that if you get an interview, it's not an issue, and then you can address it then. So it really does depend on the length of the gap. But again, generally speaking, I wouldn't address it in a cover letter, and on the resume, I wouldn't use months, so that it's just year to year, and that can, as I said, hide a gap that's less than a year.
Let's see. Ronnie asks, should those bullets in our cover letter reflect what's already on our resume, or should they be different in an opportunity to expand?
That's a great question. They should be, well, the bullets themselves, the title of the bullet or the category of the bullet should be from the job posting. Again, what are the key things they're looking for? And then you can use some of the language on your resume. That's fine. I wouldn't just cut and paste. I'd, mix it up a little bit so it doesn't look lazy. Well, I'm just going to pull this off of the resume and plug it in here. But you certainly can use some of that language. And I think it's a good idea if you have other things you can talk about that aren't on your resume. That's a good place to put it. As long as you feel it's consistently describing how you meet those key things they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Candace, what about advice for recent college grads? What can they include in their cover letters if they don't necessarily have as much work experience?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's often a dilemma, isn't it? Um, it's showing as much experience as you have, even if it's volunteer work, even if it's an internship, even if it's part of your graduate program. Maybe you took on a project, at school. Anything to show the skills that you're going, the skills that the job is wanting that person to have. So just make sure you're, again, looking through the lens of the company and the posting. What are they wanting this position to do? And why is that important to business? What is that helping the business do? And so if you can really think more from that business context than the school context, you can still pull things from your school experience that might be relevant.
Mm-hmm. Are there any fonts that you like to use for cover letters, or font sizes that you recommend?
Great question. Yes. Calibri seems to be the font of choice for resumes and cover letters and marketing materials these days. And the reason being, it's a small font height-wise, but it's broad, and it's got some breathing room. And when you have it in a document, it makes it easy to read quickly. So it's a font style, again, Calibri, very common, that seems to be the preferred, especially in the Seattle market. I don't know about the rest of the country, but it's an easy one to read. And I never go smaller, never recommend you go smaller than 11 point, 11 or 12 for the content of your resume and your cover letter, and never larger for your name at the top, never larger than 20 point font. So 18 to 20. Everything else, and then don't change font sizes in the body of your cover letter or the body of your resume. It should be the same font size throughout.
Let's see. Jim asks, is there anything that you shouldn't include in your cover letter? For example, like statements or words to avoid? I think you mentioned like to whom it may concern.
Yeah, that would be probably the biggest one. I think it's just using good common sense in terms of how you're communicating. Are you being respectful? Are you being professional? The work world has gotten more casual, but still, you're presenting yourself in these documents. You want to make sure you're coming across as professionally as you can. I'd avoid, slang, and just thinking more business. And then, of course, it depends on the company. I mean, there's some, young tech companies that are very innovative, that maybe you can use language that would be a little different than you'd use in a large corporation, for example. So you have to know your audience. But I'd say in general, just, think professional, and this is your opportunity to present yourself. So you want to put your best foot forward.
Yes. Lisa asks, how do I mention that I'm willing to relocate for a position? Would that be worth mentioning in the cover letter?
That's a really good question. I would say if you're willing to relocate and you're applying for a job that's not in the city that you live in, it probably would be good to mention that in your cover letter. That said, most companies might see that as a deterrent, because and there's a lot of complexity to this, not knowing your exact situation. Companies may be hesitant to pay relocation, so you have to think about that, how you want to address that. But I'd say if you are willing to relocate and you'd be willing to even cover that yourself, I wouldn't specifically address that, but I would say in the cover letter, yeah, I'm looking to relocate to your city, something like that.
I think that a lot of people believe that recruiters don't even read cover letters, that they're a waste of time. Can you address that? So do recruiters or hiring managers actually see your cover letter? And especially if your resume is automatically rejected by an ATS, are they seeing the cover letter then?
I can't speak to that exactly because I really am not on that side of the equation. But what I do know is cover letters are not always read. I do know that for a fact. But I still think it's worth the time and the effort because it is the opportunity to address the specificity of that role in a way that your resume just may not be able to address. So you're right, they may not get read all the time, but I still think we still recommend, and everybody that I work with as a career consultant or career coach recommends that you use a cover letter, especially if you're applying online and there's a place to upload it. That means the company is expecting to see a cover letter from you. So not doing one, yes, it does take some time, but not doing one could be a detriment, potentially.
What if they don't ask for a cover letter and there is no place to submit one?
Then you can't. There's no way around that. If you're applying online and there's no place to upload a cover letter, there is one trick you might try, but this could have a disadvantage. You could have your cover letter as the third page of your resume. And that way, that whole document would go through the applicant tracking system. Now, some applicant tracking systems only accept 2 pages. And you don't know which companies those are. I don't have a list of which companies only accept 2 pages. So you'd run the risk of the cover letter not going through. And you certainly wouldn't want the cover letter to be your first page and have the cover letter and only half of your resume go through. So in that case, I'd say, either have it as the third page and run the risk that it doesn't go through, but at least your resume does, but never put it as the first page of a 3-page document.
Emily asks, for job seekers over 60, how can we talk about our extensive experience without appearing older? And any tips just in general for older professionals when it comes to cover letters? Anything? What do you tell your clients, or how do you work with them?
Well, obviously by the color of my hair, I can speak to some of these issues. It's really important that as an older professional, you only go back in time about 15 years with specificity on your resume and or your cover letter. And there's a couple reasons for that, because ageism is a factor, and ageism works both too old or too young. And it isn't so much about ageism, it's really about current skills. And so companies are hiring based on current skills. Do you have the current knowledge, the current technology skills, whatever the skills are in your field, are you current? And so that's most important. We don't want to go back into the 90s, the 80s, the 70s at all on LinkedIn, on your resume, or in a cover letter. So you really want to simply go back about 15 years or so, because companies care most about your recent experience. Now, if you have very diverse experience, you might then want to go to a functional resume, which shows, you know, skills in these different areas instead of doing a chronological. So that's another option.
Great. Let's see. What about if someone has been with the same company for, you know, a while or over 10 years in multiple different roles? How can they address that in their cover letter if they're, you know, looking to make a change?
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question entirely, but let me answer it how I think I'm understanding it. You know, it actually shows well if you've been at a company for 10, let's say 10 years, and you've had 3 or 4 different roles. That shows that you are somebody that gets promoted based on, you know, based on your competencies and what you accomplish. So that's good. If you've been with a company for 20 years and you've been in 2 roles, you know, that doesn't show as promising. And if you've been at a company, I'm seeing some of the chats popping up. I shouldn't be looking there. Did that answer the question?
Yeah. I think it's really good to be able to show that career progression.
Yes, absolutely.
Any thoughts on what file format is best when submitting cover letters, PDF or docx, firstly, when submitting through an applicant tracking system, and secondly, when sending it in an email?
That's a great question. And I would say always use a PDF if you can. Some applicant tracking systems will require it to be in a Word doc, a docx. But if you can use a PDF, do that, because that ensures that your formatting remains, you know, fixed, and it also doesn't allow someone to go into your document and track changes and see what's been changed. So I just think always a PDF if you can.
Let's see, is there a benefit of highlighting soft skills in cover letters, or should it mainly be reserved for hard skills?
I think you need both. And again, it depends on the posting, really reviewing that job posting. How focused are they on soft skills, you know, which are people skills, right? That could be, you know, cross-functional collaboration. That could be building teams. Again, it's all about what's in the posting, and really look at how are you addressing what they're looking for, both hard and soft skills. And that should be both on your cover letter as well as your resume and LinkedIn. People are hiring for both these days.
Yes. And everyone, we are just about up on our time here. Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you again, Candace. I think we all really enjoyed your presentation, and hopefully everyone feels a little less anxiety around crafting their cover letters now. I hope to see some of you at our webinars tomorrow and Friday, but best of luck to everyone in your job searches and navigating these very, very difficult times. Thank you, Candace.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Linda and Paige.
Online listings make applying for jobs easier than ever. So why aren't you getting a response from employers? Easy applications means more applicants, which means more competition. Leading companies use automated software tools called Applicant Tracking Systems, or ATS, that weed out many resumes before they even reach a real person. So how do you cut through the noise? With Jobscan. Jobscan uses artificial intelligence to get your resume past the filters. We've reverse engineered their systems to create an intelligent tool that provides proprietary insights to optimize your resume at a much deeper level, so you can tailor your resume for each job based on precise keywords and skills most valued by the company. Jobscan can even optimize your LinkedIn profile so company recruiters find you before you even know they're looking for your skill set. Let Jobscan maximize your chances with every application. Register for your free account and run your first scan today.